January 11th, 2007. A single missile launched from China destroyed a satellite orbiting Earth. The explosion created thousands of pieces of debris, each one racing through space faster than a bullet. No country was warned. No treaty was broken. No shots were fired on Earth. Yet inside the Pentagon, alarms went off. Because for the first time, the United States understood something deeply unsettling. Space was no longer safe, and America was no longer alone at the top. For decades, space appeared peaceful. Satellites circled the planet quietly, astronauts floated in silence, and rockets symbolized scientific achievement. But behind that calm image, space became the invisible backbone of American power. Every modern U.S. military operation depends on satellites. GPS guides missiles, drones, ships, and soldiers. Satellites provide intelligence, surveillance, and early warning of nuclear launches. Secure communication links connect commanders across continents. Without space, the U.S. military becomes partially blind, deaf, and disoriented. America does not simply use space, it depends on it more than any nation in history. That dependence is its greatest vulnerability. After the Cold War, the United States enjoyed near total dominance in orbit. The Soviet Union collapsed. Russia struggled to maintain aging systems. China was still launching basic rockets. For nearly 2 decades, the U.S. controlled navigation, reconnaissance, and military communication in space. Many American strategists believed this dominance was permanent. China did not challenge that belief openly. Instead, it studied it. Chinese military thinkers carefully examined how the U.S. fights wars. They concluded that American power is not just about weapons, but about systems. Break the system, and the force collapses. Those systems rely on space. So China made space a strategic priority, not for prestige, but for leverage. In the early 2000s, China began investing heavily in satellites, launch vehicles, tracking systems, and counter-space capabilities. Civilian research and military objectives were fused together. Every technological advance had a potential battlefield use. While the U.S. debated budgets and policies, China built quietly and consistently. The 2007 satellite destruction test was the moment that shattered American assumptions. China had demonstrated it could reach into orbit and destroy an object with precision. U.S. analysts immediately grasped the implications. GPS satellites could be targeted, spy satellites could be blinded, communication networks could be disrupted, and there was no reliable defense. Satellites follow predictable paths. Once a nation proves it can hit one, every satellite becomes a potential target. Even more disturbing was the debris. Space debris does not discriminate. A fragment the size of a bolt can destroy a satellite at orbital speed. China's test created long-lasting hazards that affected all spacefaring nations. From Washington's perspective, this showed that China was willing to accept chaos in space to gain strategic advantage. It suggested future conflicts would not follow familiar rules. Since then, China has shifted from dramatic tests to quieter, more sophisticated methods. U.S. tracking systems have observed Chinese satellites maneuvering unusually close to others, inspecting them, shadowing them. These systems appear peaceful from Earth, but their behavior raises alarms. They could jam signals, interfere with sensors, damage components, or spy at close range. Because they do not explode, it becomes difficult to prove hostile intent. Was it an accident or an attack? That ambiguity is dangerous, especially between nuclear powers. China's space station sent another message. To the public, it looked like a symbol of scientific independence. To the U.S. military, it demonstrated long-term orbital capability. Sustaining human presence in space requires advanced life support, modular construction, resupply logistics, and precision docking. These same capabilities are essential for permanent space infrastructure. Once a nation can maintain and repair systems in orbit indefinitely, it moves closer to lasting control. China's ambitions extend beyond Earth orbit. Its lunar missions worry Washington even more. Officially, the goal is research. Strategically, the moon represents high ground. From there, a nation could monitor space traffic, control communication relays, access rare resources, and shape future space rules. Space law remains vague, and first movers gain enormous influence. The U.S. fears a future where China establishes permanent lunar facilities and defines the terms before others arrive. Nowhere is this fear more concrete than in the Taiwan scenario. In a conflict, China would not need to defeat the U.S. outright, it would only need to disrupt coordination. By degrading GPS accuracy, satellite communications, and reconnaissance, China could slow American response, confuse allies, and control escalation. U.S. war simulations increasingly include space denial scenarios, and the results are troubling. The creation of the U.S. Space Force was not a bold vision of the future, it was a reaction. America realized it had treated space as infrastructure, not as a contested battlefield. China had done the opposite for decades. That imbalance created risk. China does not rely solely on missiles. Cyber warfare offers another path. Satellites can be hacked, signals jammed, software corrupted. A coordinated cyberspace attack could blind early warning systems or feed false data into command networks. In a crisis, misinformation at that level could trigger catastrophic miscalculations. Although the U.S. still leads in many technologies, catching up is not simple. China benefits from centralized decision-making, rapid infrastructure deployment, and long-term strategic planning. While American programs face political delays and public scrutiny, China moves steadily, often without public debate. Space competition rewards patience and consistency. At its core, America's fear is not about rockets or astronauts. It is about losing control of the system that underpins modern power. For decades, U.S. dominance rested on global awareness, precision coordination, and technological superiority. China's space program threatens all three. Space assets are fragile, expensive, and difficult to replace once conflict begins. The most dangerous space war would not look like war at all. There would be no explosions on Earth, no armies crossing borders. Satellites would simply stop responding. GPS errors would spread. Communications would lag. Confusion would grow. By the time leaders realized what was happening, the balance might already have shifted. The United States is racing to harden satellites, build redundancy, and establish norms of behavior in orbit. But norms only work when everyone agrees to them. China has not committed to limiting counter-space capabilities. Until it does, uncertainty remains. Space was once humanity's shared frontier. Today, it is a strategic battleground. The United States is not afraid because China launches rockets. It is afraid because China understands a fundamental truth of modern power. Whoever controls space controls the systems that run the world. For the first time since the Cold War, America is no longer certain it will remain in control. And this is what makes the struggle for space so dangerous. It is not loud, dramatic, or easy to see. It unfolds quietly, far above our heads, where a single disrupted satellite can ripple through economies, militaries, and daily life without a single shot being fired. What happens in orbit no longer stays in orbit. It shapes wars, diplomacy, and the balance of power on Earth. The question is no longer whether space will be contested. That question has already been answered. The real question is who will set the rules when that contest turns real, and whether the world will recognize the warning signs before the consequences become irreversible.